What is up, guys? My name is Darren Jackson. Welcome back to the channel. We finally got some news about this Torchlight and Metamaterial merger that's probably a little bit more exciting than my previous video. But for those of you guys that watched it and became a subscriber, thank you so much. And again, officially welcome to the channel. But before we go into these new updates, for those of you guys that have little to no idea for whatever reason what Torchlight is, what Metamaterials is, or why they're merging, I'm going to briefly talk about who they are individually and why this merger is taking place and why everybody on YouTube, or at least a lot of people on YouTube, including myself, are talking a lot about it. But don't worry, guys, for those of you that are aware up until this point that everything that's going on with these two companies, just skip to this timestamp and we'll go straight to the updates. But otherwise, let's get started. Now, the two companies that are involved in this arrangement are Torchlight Energy Resources and Metamaterials Incorporated. Torchlight Energy and Resources is an oil and gas company with the primary purpose of acquiring, exploring, exploiting, and developing oil and gas properties. Now, a couple of months ago, around the time I made my first video about this merger, Torchlight at that point had about 4 different projects at 4 different bases along the Texas area. They currently have 2, which I believe are the Midland and the Oro Grande basins. That all sounds really boring, I get it, but if you are a Torchlight investor, or even if you're not, if you like specific rewards based off what you're investing into, primarily Torchlight, the assets that are involved with these projects is really important, but just keep that in mind. Let's move on. So just like a lot of oil and gas companies and a lot of companies in general, Torchlight is looking to make a move towards renewable energy, light, waves, anything like that to keep this world a cleaner place, which is really important from an environmental standpoint, but from an economic standpoint, it's not too bad either. But unlike a lot of companies, instead of taking what they have and adjusting it and recreating their brand off their own name, they want to just rip everything apart, throw it away, and join a company with the beliefs that they have and with the assets that they need, and just a whole new name, and that's where Metamaterials comes into play. So Metamaterials is a Canadian-based, primarily technology company with a little bit of renewable energy resources in the mix, but what they do and the projects that are in revolve around this transparent and flexible film with these nanomaterials that have the properties allowing them to manipulate different types of waves, primarily sunlight. By the way, guys, those nanomaterials are called metamaterials, hence the name of the company. There you go. So the metamaterials are used in different types of applications, primarily including automobile, aerospace, glasses, and even medicine, which is really cool. By the way, guys, if that out the gate interests you, or you've heard about metamaterials before and you want to learn a little bit more, make sure you check out this video. I actually talk a bit more about metamaterials in itself because I feel like a lot of the limelight's on Torchlight, and I go into why I feel like this could be a long-term investment. So make sure you check that out and let me know what you think. So as I said before, Metamaterials is primarily a Canadian-based company. They are available on other brokerage apps such as TD Ameritrade and Fidelity, but the fact that they have limited access to different brokerage apps and index funds gives them less of an opportunity to make money based on us as investors and how we feel about the company Metamaterials. So what they want to do is to be more involved within index funds, and one of the best index funds they can involve themselves in is the technology powered index fund known as the NASDAQ. Now, Torchlight will help Metamaterials qualify to be in the NASDAQ index fund so they can have more assets and make more money. And on top of that, Torchlight's already been helping by proposing a $10 million deal with Metamaterials so they can use that money to continue their projects with these metamaterials and everything else that they're doing. So both of these companies need something, and both of these companies have what the other company needs, hence why the arrangement's happening. So now that we understand what Torchlight and Metamaterials are and why they're merging together, we can now talk about the recent update that we were given and why that's so significant to us as Torchlight or Metamaterials investors, primarily Torchlight investors, because Metamaterials has already been ready. So let's talk about that. So in my last video, I talked about how Torchlight was able to extend the due date of when they had to decide when their shareholder meeting would take place, their special shareholder meeting. And that due date was May 10th. But luckily, a couple of days prior, on May 7th, we were given the information, the announcement by Torchlight that they had released their Definitive Proxy Statement to the SEC. And I know, guys, that sounds really boring, but I promise you, it's not. So I was able to read a few pages of the actual report on the sec.gov website, and I'll put that link down below if you're interested. But it includes a decent amount of information that's really important to us as Torchlight investors. For starters, including when the shareholder meeting will take place. Now, the new date for the shareholder meeting will be on June 11th, and that information is really important because that shareholder meeting will be the date that we discuss the vote, and that vote will be for if we're for the merger between Torchlight and Metamaterials and we're against it. The information that will be based off that vote will be given to us through that definitive proxy statement that they recently announced yet again on May the 7th. Now, obviously, guys, based on the amount of videos that everybody on YouTube has made and all the articles that have been made about Torchlight and Metamaterials and all the videos that I've made, it's safe to say that we're for this merger. So assuming that this merger does take place, the latest date that it would actually take place would be 7 days after the special meeting, which would be on June 18th. So by June 18th, we should all have our stocks changed to the ticker symbol MMAT for Metamaterials Incorporated. So exciting times. Now, some other information that was on the proxy statement that's kind of interesting is who's qualified to actually take part in this vote. Basically, anyone that invested into Torchlight prior to May 5th is qualified to do this vote. So if you're an investor into Torchlight through brokerage apps such as Robinhood, you should receive an email or a letter in the mail or even both letting you know that, hey, you have the opportunity to vote for or against this merger via proxy. That basically means that you tell somebody what you're voting for, and with your permission, they vote on your behalf. So that's what that is. And another reason why it's a little significant is because of the magnitude of your vote is based on the amount of shares that you have. So let's say you had 1,000 shares of Torchlight prior to May 5th, and on May 10th, or when this video comes out, you bought another 1,000. Your voting magnitude will be based off the 1,000 votes that you had before or on May 5th and not the 2,000 you have altogether, so just something to keep in mind. Now, another small detail that was included on this proxy statement that a lot of us are excited about and a lot of us have taken that as a reason to invest into Torchlight instead of Metamaterial is this Class A preferred stock dividend. Now, remember when I said that Torchlight had projects in different basins in Texas? Well, the oil, the properties, the tools, and all the other equipment that are involved in that project all have a value. And one of the things that Torchlight had to do to meet the qualifications to even do this arrangement was to sell all those assets by a given period of time. Those assets will reach a value and be divided among us as shareholders as this preferred stock dividend. And while I've been making these videos, I've heard a lot of assumptions and educated guesses on what this value could be. I've heard some people that have been a little pessimistic say, man, maybe between 25 to 50 cents. I've seen people who are a little more, I guess, realistic and say maybe $1 to $5. And I've seen some very optimistic people who have said $10 to even $25 per share. Of course, we would all love for it to be optimistic, but it depends on the value of oil per barrel, all the other stuff, and on top of that, the price of the tools and equipment that they use. So we will all figure that out. But aside from how much will we get in Class A dividends, the other question I know we all have is who qualifies for it. And that is a record date that they also announced. But they announced that it won't be announced until shortly after the shareholder meeting takes place. But what they did announce is that the record date will be based upon when the merger will actually take place. And we know that the merger will take place based on the last article within 7 days of when the shareholder meeting would take place. That's June 11th, which means the merger should take place by June 18th. So based off that information, it sounds like the people that qualify for this Class A preferred share dividend are those of us who invest into Torchlight at best prior to June 18th, so June 17th, and maybe at worst prior to the shareholder meeting itself. So if you're really interested in this company, whether it's for the long term or short term, and you're really interested in that dividend, you might want to invest into it right now just in case. But at the end of the day, I know we're in some interesting times. There's a lot of assumptions on especially what this dividend will be. And for those of us that are long-term investors into either Metamaterials or Torchlight right now, and ultimately Metamaterials by June 18th, what Metamaterials has in store for it in the future. So it's really cool. But in the meantime, Definitely leave your comments below. What do you think about this new update? How excited are you guys? Do you have any doubt that this whole merger will go smoothly? And what is your prediction on this dividend price? Do you think it's pretty low? Do you think it's really high, and why? I'm sure all of us on this investing journey that are investing into this company would really appreciate that information, including myself. And speaking of information, make sure you guys watch some of these other videos. I have made some additional videos on Torchlight, obviously, like everybody else. So hopefully you find some really good, useful information on those videos that help you guys out on your investment journey as I have in mind. I really do appreciate you guys watching, and until next time, take care.